This is Chris Vaughn, Catalyst and Chic at In Her Company. Welcome to the final episode of our 90 Days series, where I have a few final tips for you. It's been a journey. Hasn't been quite 90 days, especially in this abbreviated podcast version, but here we are. Definitely cheer yourself on. The lessons have, in fact, been challenging, caused you to think of things in manners that you weren't accustomed and delve deeper into your perspectives. Now, this segment is normally delivered as a live session after Q&A before closing out the training. Final words I impart to carry clients through the next part of their journey, allowing them to continue the momentum and stay prepared. Feedback we've received from previous clients show they appreciate the quality of the questions, organization, and brevity, and that we don't accept excuses because it's easy, but not necessarily easy work. So many women are used to programs that promise a fast fix and end up with checklists, simply ticking boxes for the sake of being done. But then they realize they haven't moved forward or increased their understanding. The change they're looking for requires work. Unfortunately, many don't want that level of depth. We push people to make new choices and to practice those choices so they get to the future they want to create instead of remaining mired in the past. Our promise with this series was clarity, actionable steps, a reconnection to self, to dream again, and to move forward in a meaningful versus meandering way. There's a method to our madness, as you've seen, and the way forward, in your words, unique to you that you built during this process. I believe we've delivered on that. So no more allure of golden carrots or shiny objects that reflect but do not allow you to obtain the real thing. You've taken this course or listened to this series to lay hold of everything you have inside of you, and it's worth more than enough. So here are your final tips, things from my journey and our past experience with clients that we've put into practice and have proven themselves true with the women that we've worked with. I hope you enjoy them, and for this final time, take notes. My first tip to you is time, because sometimes answers come when we need them to, not necessarily when we want them to. Get comfortable with giving yourself space and allowing time for your answers to arise. Often, we can be in such a rush. We're deadline focused. We think our time is running out, opportunities are passing, and feel we don't know where to look for options. Not to say that deadlines don't exist, but the rest of that, those are just lies. You are on a journey that only you must walk. Don't be in such a rush to do so according to someone else's timeline. It takes courage to admit you don't know the answer or have a ready solution, but trust that you'll find it. But being in a rush can rob you of the process that leads to the solution you're seeking. There are times when I work on things to the extent which I'm able, and then I leave space. I know something's there. I sense it. I can feel it, although I don't know quite what it is. It's times like these that we have the choice to fill it with something because we're not used to or don't like the aesthetic of empty spaces. After all, who'll know? You're the only one aware it doesn't sit right. Or you can allow the space to remain and return to it, trusting that as long as you stay the course, the answer will emerge. There have been times when I've been down to the wire, but resolved not to force something. Each time the answer came, and each time it was better than anything I could have filled that space with. Now, leaving space is not the same as leaving something undone. It's intentionally creating margin for the purpose of completion. But because we're uncomfortable doing so, we end up robbing ourselves, delivering half-baked solutions, or allowing something that would be deemed good enough to settle into space, to settle into place. It's okay to allow yourself time. It better serves you and those you serve also. The second tip, iteration. What you begin with today is not what you will end up with tomorrow. Ideals are often just the invitation. You have to choose to explore them more fully and actively participate in what they'll become. In project management, we apply the Japanese concept of Kaizen, continuous improvement, processes, operations, productivity, gradual and methodical. This is true of creative pursuits, akin to writing your first and second draft, as much as it is in business, rather via product, seeking improvements in design, manufacturing, or materials, or service, program structure, content, delivery. We can even add your experience and the work you've done during this 90 days series, letting go of rafts, restrictive routines, non-productive thoughts and rituals in favor of natural progression, change in perspectives, then nurturing and protecting your efforts so that they can continue to grow. Third tip, process. Everything we do begins as a seed. Whether concept, idea, or vision for your life or business, all go through a process in order to fully blossom. Process is part of purpose, is who you are, what your ideal becomes during the journey, not the destination itself. What we aren't told, though, is that each step has its own path and process, and each is an opportunity to become a better navigator. Keeping our end goals, the outcomes we want to arrive at, is important as we move ahead. But we shouldn't be so consumed with destination that we overlook lessons along the way, because hopefully we'll only travel this way once. And the last tip is one many have a love-hate relationship with, but grow to appreciate. That's perseverance. When all else fails, remember you must persevere. The sound and weight of that word itself is unpleasant. After all, who wants to have to endure, to bear a burden or carry a difficulty beyond the time they hoped it would be resolved, or wait for something you can see so clearly but is presently far from reach? There are struggles beyond our control even. We know this, but often don't resist the urge to rail against them anyway. Perseverance doesn't just birth patience, it takes. It does not ask what's needed for you to persevere. It just is. It just does. And at some point becomes part of your journey. You can allow it to warp you, to bind you in such a fit that you removed yourself from your own path, or knowing the day will eventually come. You can enter its forge willingly, allow it to build resilience, stamina, character, so you emerge as one who's withstood, as an example to others that they can too. So, these are my final tips for you. Time, iteration, process, and perseverance. As this series ends and you move on to whatever your next is, I hope you remember these. I call strength to your path, enjoyment to your life, and that when you encounter others, may they begin to understand what's required and count the journey worth it anyway. Most of all, may you walk as the woman that you were created to be, uncover all God has for you, and no desire remain for you to ever look back. Because after all, that's not where you're headed. Continue to move forward. Thank you for listening to the In Her Company podcast. In Her Company is produced and hosted by me, Chris Vaughn, audio production and administration by Organized Chaos. A huge thanks to the In Her Company team and community of catalysts supporting the show. Connect with us on Instagram at inherco_. Join our Substack at inhercompany.substack.com. For more information about In Her Company or our guests or queries, visit www.inher.co, not .com.